I still remember the day I opened the doors of my house to my in-laws with a heart full of trust, thinking family would bring warmth into these old walls. My husband had passed just 3 years earlier, and the silence of the house scared me more than loneliness itself. So when my son told me, "Mom, they just need a place for a short while," I didn't question it. I simply smiled and said, "This house is yours too." But I didn't know that the home I built with my husband's hard work would turn into a battlefield where I would lose every right, every comfort, and almost myself. I was 65 when they moved in, too old to fight, but still too young to be treated like invisible furniture. They arrived with their loud voices, their boxes, their complaints, and slowly, quietly, they pushed me out of my own space. First, it was the living room. "We need this area for guests," my daughter-in-law said. Then the kitchen. "You don't cook like we prefer, Mom, so we'll handle it." But then they made their rules. Their food. Their timings. Their decisions. My house, but their control. And I kept telling myself, it's okay, it's family. But things got worse the day my daughter-in-law walked into my room without knocking, arms crossed, face stiff like she was talking to a maid, not the woman who raised her husband. "Mom," she said sharply, "we've decided you need to contribute more. Times are tough. You can't just sit home all day." I blinked at her, confused. "Contribute?" I asked. "I pay the bills. This is my home." She shrugged. "Still, you should work. We were thinking maybe you can get a cleaning job. Or something in a store. Women your age do that all the time." I felt something crack inside my chest. Something I couldn't put into words. I thought she was joking. But she wasn't. By the end of that week, I was working not 1, not 2, but 3 jobs. A morning cleaning shift at a small motel, an afternoon cashier job at a grocery store, and stitching clothes late at night for neighbors who needed alterations. My back hurt, my legs trembled, and every breath felt heavier than the last. But they kept living in my house like royalty, rent-free, bill-free, responsibility-free, while I dragged myself through long days and lonely evenings. Sometimes I would come home from work and find them watching TV on my sofa, laughing, eating food from the fridge that I had paid for, while I stood at the door like a stranger. "Mom, take off your shoes outside," my daughter-in-law once said, not even looking at me. "You bring dust in." I wanted to cry, but tears felt like a luxury I no longer had time for. One night, after a 14-hour day, I sat alone on the edge of my bed and whispered to myself, how did I become a servant in the house I own? But the answer never came. Instead, what came was a moment that broke everything open, a moment after which nothing was ever the same. Because one day I overheard something they never expected me to hear. Something that told me they were not planning to just use my house. They were planning to take it from me completely. I don't know if it was luck, fate, or God's mercy that made me pause outside the kitchen that evening. I had come home late again, my feet swollen, my hands trembling from the long shift. I moved slowly, leaning on the wall for support, when I heard my daughter-in-law's voice, sharp, irritated, and far too comfortable for someone living rent-free under my roof. She was talking to my son. "We can't keep waiting," she said. "Your mother is getting old. What if something happens to her? The house will go to you anyway, but I don't want complications with paperwork later." My heart froze. The spoon in my hand slipped and hit the floor softly, but they didn't hear it. My son sighed like the topic was a burden to him. "I know," he said. "But she trusts me. It won't be hard. I'll talk to her. I'll tell her putting the house in my name is better, safer. Something for the future." She scoffed. "She won't say no. She treats you like a god. Just convince her. Once it's in your name, we can finally renovate this place. I'm tired of living in her old-fashioned house." Her words felt like a knife slicing through my chest. My house. Old-fashioned? The house my husband and I had built brick by brick, saving every penny, patching every wall with love. She wanted it erased, replaced, owned. And my son, my own blood, was ready to take it from me the moment I grew too weak to fight back. I stepped back slowly, feeling like the walls were spinning. I went to my room quietly, shut the door and locked it. For the first time in years I cried. Not the soft, tired tears I had shed before, but a deep, painful cry that came from a place I didn't know existed. How long had this been their plan? How long had they smiled at me while plotting behind my back? I thought of all the meals I had cooked for them, the clothes I washed, the bills I paid, the roof I gave them. I thought of the mornings I woke up at 4 a.m. for work while they slept happily under the blankets I bought. And suddenly my pain turned into something else, clarity. A sharp, trembling clarity. I realized they didn't want me. They wanted what belonged to me. They didn't value me. They valued the house. I wiped my tears and took a long breath. My heart was breaking, but my mind was waking up. The next morning, when they sat at the table acting normal, I watched them closely. My daughter-in-law scrolled on her phone, complaining about nothing, demanding tea. My son asked casually, "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important later." My stomach tightened. I knew exactly what he wanted to talk about. They didn't know I had heard everything. But before he could speak, I suddenly stood up. "I'm running late for work," I said, even though I still had an hour. Because I needed that hour. Not to cry. Not to pray. But to plan. After work, I walked to a lawyer's office. My legs trembled the entire way. My savings were small, my courage even smaller, but I had something stronger than both, my husband's memory, and the home we built together. I told the lawyer everything. Every detail. Every word I overheard. And then he explained something that made my heart pound with fear and relief at the same time. The house was legally mine. Fully. No one could force me to sign it away. No one could claim it. And most importantly, I had the right to remove anyone who made me feel unsafe in my own home. Anyone. Even family. Walking back home, I felt strange. Not strong, not brave, but awake. Fully awake. Their game was about to end. But I had no idea that once I made my move, things in the house would take a very dark turn. Darker than anything I had seen yet. I reached home that evening with my heart beating so loudly I felt it in my throat. The lawyer's words kept repeating in my mind like a whisper of protection I had forgotten I deserved. "You are the legal owner. You can ask them to leave at any time." But courage doesn't grow overnight. It shakes inside you like a scared child. And when I pushed open the door, the fear returned heavier than before. My daughter-in-law was standing in the living room, arms crossed, her eyes already sharp, already suspicious. "You're late again," she snapped. "Did you pick up extra hours without telling us? Because the electricity bill is due." I looked at her face, so young, so full of entitlement, and for the first time I didn't lower my eyes. I didn't apologize. I just walked past her silently. That silence made her angry. Very angry. When my son came home, she whispered something into his ear immediately, as if reporting me like a disobedient servant. He came to my room a few minutes later, knocking but not waiting for permission to enter. "Mom," he said sternly, "we need to talk." I paused, holding my breath. About the house. There it was. The moment they thought they had control over me. He sat on the chair like he was the authority and I was some helpless old woman who didn't understand how the world worked. "Mom, it's better if we put the house in my name," he began. "You're getting older. If something happens, the paperwork will become a headache. This is for your own good. For my own good." The same line they always use before taking something that doesn't belong to them. I looked up slowly. "Why now?" I asked. He shrugged. "Just being responsible. Plus, we want to renovate. The house needs upgrades. But we can't invest money into a house that isn't in our name. You understand, right?" I looked into his eyes, the same eyes I once kissed when he was a child, the same eyes that cried when he fell down learning to walk. But now those eyes were cold. Hungry. Calculating. "No," I said. One word. Soft but firm enough to make him blink. "No? What do you mean no?" he asked, confused. It was the first time he had ever heard me refuse him anything. "The house stays in my name," I said. "I'm not signing anything." His face reddened. He stood up abruptly. "Mom, don't be difficult. We're trying to help you." "You're not helping me," I replied quietly. "You're helping yourselves." His jaw tightened. "Did someone put these ideas in your head? Who have you been talking to?" I didn't answer. He stared at me for a long moment, then stormed out and slammed the door so hard the frame shook. What happened next is something I will never forget. Because anger, when mixed with entitlement, becomes cruelty. That night they stopped speaking to me completely. Silence. Heavy, deliberate silence. The next morning they used the bathroom and left water all over the floor on purpose. The kitchen counters were dirty. The trash was overflowing. They acted as if I didn't exist. As if I wasn't living in the same house. My daughter-in-law cooked for just the two of them and left the kitchen in a mess, then looked at me with a smirk when I came to clean. I realized what they were doing. They were punishing me for protecting the home I built. And as the days passed, their cruelty became colder. One evening I came home exhausted from my third job, and I found something that made my legs give out from under me. My room, my private space, was turned upside down. My drawers were emptied. My clothes were thrown on the floor. My personal documents were missing. And sitting on the bed was my daughter-in-law, holding my property papers in her hand. She looked up and smiled. Not a kind smile. A smile that said she had found the weapon she needed. "So this is what you were hiding," she said slowly. "Let's see how long you say no now." At that moment I realized something terrifying. They were no longer manipulating me. They were attacking me. And if I didn't act soon, I would lose everything, including myself. I stood frozen at the doorway as she held my property papers in her hand like a thief proudly displaying a stolen jewel. My heart throbbed violently, and my throat tightened until I couldn't breathe. That paper, that single piece of paper, was the last thing my husband had left for me. It held our struggle, our sacrifices, our years of saving, our late nights counting coins and dreaming of a home that would one day hold our future children. And now it was clutched between the fingers of a woman who didn't even see me as a person, only as an obstacle standing between her and the house she wanted to claim. "Give that back," I whispered, but my voice trembled. She tilted her head and smirked. "You're shaking, Mom." "Why?" "Afraid someone might take what you don't deserve to keep." My knees weakened. "This is my home," I said, a little louder this time, but she only laughed. "Everything becomes our home once it's in our name. And trust me, it will be." She stood up slowly and walked past me, brushing her shoulder against mine deliberately, like she was reminding me of her power. My papers were still in her hand. I should have grabbed them. I should have screamed. I should have fought. But I stood there like a frightened child, my hands useless at my sides, my breath stuck in my chest. Fear is a strange thing. It doesn't stop you from moving. It stops your soul from moving. I gathered whatever courage I had left and went to their room, knocking twice. My son opened the door halfway, annoyed, like I was disturbing his peace. "Where are my documents?" I asked. My voice was steadier this time. He didn't even pretend to understand. "What documents?" "My property papers," I whispered. "She took them." He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Mom, why are you being dramatic?" She just looked at them. "Don't start any trouble. It's my house." I finally raised my voice for the first time in months. "And I want my documents back." He stepped closer, too close, and lowered his voice. "Be careful, Mom," he said, eyes dark. "You're starting to sound ungrateful. After everything we've done for you." I felt a bitter laugh rise inside me. Everything they've done for me? They lived free, ate free, slept free, controlled my home, ordered me around, forced me into 3 jobs. And now they were calling me ungrateful. "Give me my papers," I repeated. His jaw tightened, but he didn't. He simply shut the door in my face. That night I sat on my bed trembling, my heart breaking in slow, silent cracks. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run away. But where would I go? This was my house, the only thing I had. And they were slowly taking it from me, piece by piece, day by day. I didn't sleep at all. Around 3 a.m. I heard them talking. Their voices were low but sharp. I moved quietly toward their door, the same way I had months ago when I first overheard their plan. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm rang, before the sun touched the curtains, before the house began breathing with the entitled footsteps of the people who treated me like a burden. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands cold but steady. Last night's realization had carved itself into my bones. If I didn't act now, I would lose everything. My home. My dignity. My last years. But courage, even when it finally arrives, comes wrapped in fear. My fingers trembled as I opened my small cupboard and pulled out a bag. The same old cloth bag I used to carry vegetables in my younger days. I placed inside it what little cash I had saved secretly, my ID, and the photocopy of my property papers I had made at the lawyer's office. That single precaution, almost accidental, was the only reason I still had proof the house was mine. I took a deep breath, stood up and walked toward the living room. My in-laws were there already, sitting like they owned the place. Feet on the table, cups unwashed, plates left carelessly. The house filling with the smell of their morning tea that I had bought but never drank. My daughter-in-law glanced at me with irritation. "You're up early," she said. "Good. You can clean the kitchen before leaving." But today her voice didn't frighten me. Not even a little. I looked right at her for the first time in months, and something in my eyes must have startled her because she sat up straighter. My son came out of the bathroom, wiping his face, still half asleep. "Mom, we need to talk after you come back from work," he said firmly. I knew what that meant. He was going to force the issue again. The house. The signatures. The manipulation. But today he didn't know something. Today I wasn't going to work. Today I wasn't going to clean their plates. Today I wasn't going to bend. I walked past them silently and stepped outside. I could feel their confused eyes on my back, but I didn't turn around. My steps were slow but steady. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like a drum inside my chest. I walked out of the gate, and for the first time in a long time, the air felt different, lighter, colder but honest. My feet took me back to the lawyer's office. The same kind man looked up when I entered. "You're back," he said gently. "Are you ready?" My voice broke as I nodded. "I want to do what you told me," I whispered. He didn't question me. He didn't pity me. He simply brought out the documents and prepared the notices. Legal notices. For eviction. I was trembling the entire time, like I was signing away a part of my soul. But in truth, I was reclaiming it. "They will fight," he warned softly. "Are you prepared for that?" I closed my eyes, and the memory of my daughter-in-law scattering my clothes across the floor flashed. The memory of my son calling me ungrateful. The taste of tears I cried alone every night. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." He handed me the sealed envelopes. "Give these to them today. And don't let them intimidate you. If anything happens, call me immediately." The envelopes felt heavy in my hands, heavier than any burden I had carried these past years. When I returned home, their faces were waiting for me. Angry, suspicious, ready to blame me for something I hadn't even done yet. "Where were you?" my son demanded. "Why didn't you go to work?" My daughter-in-law's eyes darted to the bag in my hand. "What's that? What are you hiding now?" For a moment I felt that old fear creep up. The fear of confrontation, the fear of losing them, the fear of standing alone. But then I reminded myself. I had already been alone for a very long time. So I lifted my head, looked them both in the eyes, and placed the envelopes on the table. "This is for you," I said quietly. My daughter-in-law snatched one immediately, ripped it open and started reading. Her eyes widened. Her face paled. "Eviction," she whispered. "You're evicting us?" My son grabbed his envelope next, and I saw his face twist into disbelief and anger. "Mom, what is this?" he shouted. My voice didn't shake this time. "It's my home," I said. "Legally. Rightfully. And I'm taking it back." His face turned red. "Are you insane? You're throwing your own family out." "You threw me out first," I said softly. "You threw me out of my own room, my kitchen, my decisions, my peace, my dignity." My daughter-in-law slammed her hand on the table. "You can't do this. We'll fight it." "You can fight," I replied calmly. "But the law won't be on your side." She looked at my son with wide, furious eyes. "I told you we should have forced her earlier. Now look, she's turning against us." My son stepped forward, pointing a finger at me. "You did this because you hate her. Because you want to punish me." I felt tears in my eyes again, but they were not tears of pain this time. They were tears of final truth. "I did this," I whispered, "because you stopped loving me long before I stopped loving you." The room went quiet. Dead quiet. They didn't speak to me for hours, not out of anger but out of shock. They thought they owned me. They thought I wouldn't dare. They thought I was weak. But that night, everything changed. I locked my door. I hugged my pillow. And I cried, not because I was breaking but because I was finally beginning to heal. But what happened the next morning was something I never expected. Something that shook me to my core. something that showed me just how far they were willing to go. I woke up the next morning to a sound that immediately tightened every muscle in my body. It wasn't a door closing. It wasn't the usual loud, careless footsteps of my in-laws. It was whispering, urgent whispering, angry whispering. I sat up slowly, my heart beating fast. The house felt different, heavier, colder, like something dangerous was waiting beyond my bedroom door. I could hear my son's voice, low and tense, and my daughter-in-law's voice, sharp and panicked. "She can't do this," she hissed. "We need to stop her somehow." My son sounded different, more desperate than angry. "She's serious this time," he muttered. "The lawyer's notice is real. We could lose everything." "Everything," she snapped. "We did everything for her, and she wants to kick us out?" I felt my chest tighten. They did everything for me? In that moment I realized something. People who convince themselves they are victims can justify any cruelty. I placed my hand on the doorknob but didn't open it. Instead I listened. "We have to do something before the notice period ends," she whispered. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "I don't know, scare her? Pressure her? Make her sign something? She's old, she'll break." My heart stopped. Break. The way she said it. It wasn't concern. It was strategy. Then my son said the words I never thought I would hear from the child I raised. "If she doesn't cooperate, we'll make her regret it." A chill ran down my spine. My own son, my flesh and blood, planning against me in my own house. I stepped back, my breath shaking. For the first time I wasn't afraid of losing them. I was afraid of them. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands icy cold, trying to steady my breath. My mind was racing. Could they hurt me? Would they? How far would they go? A sudden knock on my door made me jump. "Mom," my son called. "Open the door. We need to talk." His voice was flat, controlled, dangerous. I didn't move. "Mom," he repeated, knocking harder. "Open it." My daughter-in-law added, "We're trying to fix this. Don't make it worse." Fix this? By breaking me? I gathered whatever little courage I had and spoke through the door. "I'm not opening. Not now." There was a long stretch of silence, then a sound that made my knees weaken. They tried the doorknob. They tried to force it. "Did you lock it?" my daughter-in-law whispered harshly. "Of course she did. She thinks we're enemies now." My voice cracked. "Please stop trying to open my door." A moment passed before my daughter-in-law said loudly, "Fine. Stay inside like a coward." Their footsteps moved away. For the next few hours the house felt like a trap. I could hear drawers opening, things being moved aggressively, the thuds of frustration. At one point I heard my son slam something against a wall. Maybe a chair. Maybe his hand. Maybe his anger. Around noon the house grew silent. Too silent. Silence is sometimes the loudest threat. I slowly unlocked my door and stepped out. The living room was empty. The kitchen was empty. The hallway was empty. But the front door was open. I stepped outside, confused. I looked around and that's when I saw it. My son and daughter-in-law standing with suitcases. Not their suitcases. My suitcase. My bags. My clothes. My belongings thrown out like trash. My daughter-in-law looked at me with a cold smile. "You want us gone," she said. "Fine. But you're going first." My son pointed to the street. "Pack everything and leave. If you want a war, we'll give you one. You can't evict us if you're not living here." My vision blurred. "You're throwing me out of my own house?" My son didn't even flinch. "This house belongs to all of us," he said. "And you've made it clear you don't want family. So you can go." A wind blew past me, carrying dust and humiliation with it. I felt lightheaded. My own child throwing me out. My own child telling me to leave the home I built. My own child choosing convenience over love. My daughter-in-law crossed her arms. "Leave now before things get ugly." Ugly. Things were already ugly. I backed away, trembling. I picked up one of my bags with shaking hands. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to call. I didn't even know how my legs were moving. But as I walked away from the house, my house, I heard my daughter-in-law's voice one last time. "See? She left. Told you she's weak." Weak. The word echoed in my mind with every step. But little did they know. I wasn't leaving because I was weak. I was leaving because something bigger was about to rise inside me. And when it did, it would change everything. The day I finally gathered the courage to speak up, something inside me shifted forever. I had spent so many years swallowing my pain, hiding my exhaustion behind a forced smile, convincing myself that family is family. But that morning when I stood in my own living room and told them they had to leave, I felt a strength I didn't even know I still had. My mother-in-law's face turned pale. My sister-in-law's froze. No one spoke for a full minute. Maybe they thought I was joking. Maybe they thought the old widow who worked too much would stay silent forever. But I didn't. Not this time. I walked straight to the table, placed the official notice in front of them and said, "This isn't anger. This is self-respect." Before they could argue, I turned and walked toward my son's room. I didn't want him to hear shouting or witness any ugliness. I wanted him to see only one thing: his mother finally valuing herself. That afternoon I packed their bags, quietly, without drama. They shouted, they cursed, they blamed me for breaking the family. But I kept repeating to myself, I am not breaking anything. I am saving myself. Within 2 days the house was empty, beautifully, peacefully empty. For the first time in years I could hear the sound of my own breathing. No gossip. No complaints. No orders. Just silence, warm, healing silence. I made myself tea and sat on the porch. I remember the steam touching my face, the sunlight warming my hands. I whispered, I am finally home. Not because the house looked different, but because I finally felt safe inside it. I started working fewer hours. I organized my finances. I spent time with my son. I cooked meals that tasted like my childhood. I laughed again. And most importantly, I learned to love myself again. A few months later, my in-laws tried to return, pretending nothing had happened. But I simply smiled and said, no, those doors are closed now. Not out of revenge, not out of hate, but because healing requires boundaries. And mine were long overdue. Today, when I look back, I don't feel bitterness. I feel proud of the woman who finally stood up for herself after years of being walked over. Proud of the strength I didn't know I had. Proud that I finally reclaimed my life, my dignity, and my home. This story is not about pain anymore. It is about courage. It is about standing up after everyone expects you to stay down. It is about breaking chains you should have never been tied to. And if anyone ever asks me, how did you do it? I will simply say, when you finally understand your own worth, you stop letting people live off your soul.